All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Michael. I'm a co-founder and software engineer at Boltz. And we do atomic swaps between the different Bitcoin layers and now also stablecoins. We've been running a Lightning node for pretty much since mainnet exists for Lightning. It's been 7 years, I think, and we still have channels from back in the day. So we know our Lightning stuff. We have been around the block for the good times and the bad times. And today I want to talk about the economics of running a Lightning node, because there is obvious upsides that are easy to see for everyone, but also brutal math that can get you wrecked really badly. We usually in this industry highlight the good parts, the amazing parts that are fun and great for everyone. But today I want to talk about the not so pretty parts and what it actually looks like in the real world when you do run a Lightning node, especially at scale. The math can get pretty ugly pretty quickly, and the economics are not as simple as having an Onchain wallet and sending payments from there. So first of all, why should you run a Lightning node? The most obvious benefit for everyone to see is you earn from routing. When you have public channels announced into the network, you earn fees on every payment that crosses through your channels. It's a very simple model. You just charge by either base fee, an absolute amount for every payment that goes through the channel, and a parts per million fee, so basically a small percentage of the amount. The base fee has been pretty much neglected in practice. Nobody charges base fees anymore. They are either 0 or 1 sat. So in the grand scheme of things, for economics, they are negligible. What actually matters is the flow through your channels of those payments, which is where you actually earn from routing by charging a percentage or like parts per million basis points. The other thing that you can do with your Lightning node is that you sell channels. This is the LSP, the Lightning Service Provider model, where you sell inbound capacity to someone else when they request it, and you charge a fee for that. I'll get into the details, but that's also like a very obvious thing to do. You have a good node, lots of channels, you might as well sell some of this capacity to someone else who needs it. Another thing, which is hard to put into numbers, but is important, is that you are sovereign. When you run your own node, you depend on no one. You're your own boss, you have your own keys, there is no single point of failure, and it's your own infrastructure. You can't put a concrete number on that, but it's something to consider in the equation, that not relying on a single point of failure is important in a sense that if you depend on someone else, and they go down, so does your business. It's a huge opportunity cost when you rely on someone else to do these Lightning things for you. One big reason in the early days of Lightning was an altruistic one, to grow the network. People were handing out channels via Signal DMs, X, and so you were posting, hey, I opened a Lightning node, who wants a channel? And every well-run Lightning node that does that is a benefit to the network. And I think pretty much everyone in this room here has Bitcoin, and from a better Lightning network, that Bitcoin itself has more value because it's more useful as such. I really do think that good technology built on top of Bitcoin increases its value. And in that way, it's also a semi-altruistic but also selfish reason to run a Lightning node. Each of them are real reasons you can justify, but none of them are as easy as they might sound. And I want to go through them in order and talk a little bit more about what these things entail. So what do you actually get for the trouble of running a Lightning node? Most obvious thing again, you earn for routing. The parts per million fee you charge times the volume in Satoshis that goes through your channel. Really simple equation. And it's a percentage you charge. It's a service fee that you provide by having a publicly announced channel with the capacities in the correct places to forward someone else's payments. If you are in the right spot in the network, if you set your fees right, if you do everything perfectly, you can get a really, really good yield on that. My example on the slides is 10%, which is from Square, the block node, which powers Cash App, and they also make a really good yield on their Bitcoin in the node. In their case, it was almost 10%, and 10% on Bitcoin paid in Bitcoin in real time is not bad. It sounds super nice, but there is going to be a catch I'm going to talk about later. Same thing with selling channels. When you sell a channel to someone, you're going to get a yield from that. That yield ranges wildly between a couple % a year that you can get in fee revenue from that. And the concept is that you pay upfront, where you say, hey, I want to buy a 1 million Satoshi channel you open to me, and you're going to pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%, depending on the service, depending on the quality, depending on the agreement you have with the counterparty. So it's a real business if the counterparty you're willing to buy from is positioned in the network nicely so that you actually are willing to buy. If I just open a node on a Raspberry in my basement without channels, odds are you're not going to buy from me. So there is a tangible cost to having a node that someone is willing to buy a channel from. Also, it's really, really capital intensive. Imagine you sell 1 million sets of capacity to someone for a fixed fee. This capacity is now with them. This does not scale indefinitely in the sense that you only have so many sats to log into channels with other people. It is actual Bitcoin liquidity you commit to someone in a very specific way for a specific use case. The third upside is that no one can stop you. It's your node, your keys, your decisions. There is no terms of service, no support tickets if something doesn't work, no external single point of failure that can shut your business down. When you do a custodial solution in some way, shape, or form, you completely rely on this API to serve all your needs. If you go for a trade-off LSP-esque solution, you still have someone that is your external point of failure, which is not custodial anymore. You have your own keys, the funds are yours, but you rely on your LSP to be behaving nicely and have the availability and uptime that you actually need. When you run your own node, all of these issues go away and you can actually manage your own infrastructure. It's the bare metal hosting version of Lightning, where you are your own boss and can do what you want, when you want, how you want it. These things don't show up in a profit and loss calculation directly, and you only really notice that as opportunity cost in case something goes wrong. So when your LSP is offline, when your custodial account gets locked, and you can't do business because of that, that's opportunity cost. That's risk you take by taking a shortcut in a way, and is an actual economic decision you have to take. Also, when you use some kind of service, this is a service in the end. They charge fees. If you don't use a service, you don't pay for those fees. It's like very simple, but when you do these things at scale, those small payments that you pay for fees, they compound really fast when you have meaningful volume. When you have, for example, a 0.25% fee for every payment you do, there is a calculation you can make of how much does this service charge versus how much is the effort of doing these things myself. At what point does it make sense to cut out the middleman and keep that margin to myself? And yeah, the altruistic reason to grow the network, to make the network more reliable, more valuable, and while you also get paid for it, the public goods argument, the altruistic one, was a really big one in the early days. That people just opened channels out of the goodwill of their hearts and kept them open forever, were being nice citizens, being super kind to other nodes, but the issue was, and is and always will be, that altruism doesn't scale capital. You cannot subsidize the entire network for free, and in the early days we had zero fee routing nodes, you could just hit someone up to open big channels to you, all these things are gone. That's not happening anymore. An altruistic reason cannot scale a network, and we are seeing a professionalization and realistic fees now in the network that didn't used to exist in the same way. In a sense, the network right now is being realistic in a sense that there is no more free lunch, you don't get channels for free anymore, you have to actually have a model that works for you in an economic sense if you want to be serious about Lightning operations. So what are the costs that come with all these upsides? Some of them are obvious, other ones are much more nefarious and hidden behind the scenes, and you only get to see them when you are actually in too deep already and get a really nasty surprise. The obvious cost is on-chain fees. Every channel requires at least 2 Bitcoin transactions, one to open, one to close, and the cost is a market rate. What the mempool says, you have to pay. In a calm environment, this is all fun and games, 0.1 sat per vbyte, super cheap, whatever. It's a rounding error, what you pay in channel fees. If you're in a rush, in a typical environment, you're going to pay a couple sats per vbyte, like 5. The issues come when it's not typical, when there is spikes. A stressed Bitcoin network with fees in the hundreds of sat per vbytes can get you wrecked pretty badly, especially because these at least 2 transactions, they don't always happen when you pick the date. They happen because they have to. When you have, for example, a nasty forced close transaction where this close needs to happen right now, you can't pick a mempool fee. This has to confirm in the next 10 hours. You have to pay market rate. If you have pending HDLCs, pending payments on this channel that is being forced close because it has to, it gets even nastier. And the fees stack up pretty quickly at 2, 3, 5, 600 sat per vbyte. In the ordinals wave that happened a couple of years ago, this got pretty evident, where there was literally Nostr bots posting about how much fucking money the Boltz nodes are spending on force closes. There was like a post every day, another force close. This time it's $500. This time it's $1,000. This time it's $2,000 in force close plus the enforcements of the pending channels. And these things you can't pick. It's a risk you always run into when you have an open Lightning channel and need to enforce. Yeah. If you have these environments where the fees are super high and an HDLC times out, you have to force close. This can pretty much eliminate the months of revenue that you accrued through routing, opening channels. Pretty much all the revenue you made is spent on a single force close of a nasty channel at a really inconvenient time. The next cost that is a little more obvious, but you still have to think about it for a minute to really get the mental model of it, is that there's a cost to inbound. Inbound, the ability to receive, is not a given in the Lightning Network. When you create a node, open channels, you can't receive. You only have outbound capacity to send. What you need to receive, and especially also route, you need to have liquidity pointed at you and in the right places. This inbound liquidity is pretty much someone else's outbound. It's someone else's capital that they lock and commit to you, to your specific channel in this specific configuration. And capital is not free. There is risks to running this whole setup of a Lightning channel that the counterparty wants to be paid for, and also the capital itself. As an opportunity cost, and also like capital itself is not free, they want to be paid for it. Your inbound is someone else's liability, and you have to compensate them for this accordingly, or they will close the channel. Not that long ago, we did a huge cleanup of our Boltz node, and we've closed hundreds of channels, especially private ones, smaller ones, to like independent people who opened them in the past, and we got countless DMs asking us, why did you close my channel? It's because your channel and your inbound you have with us is a cost factor to us. We can't keep capital around and keep your inbound around forever, where you do one payment once every 3 months to the conference. This is not something we can do at scale. We have to be pragmatic about the way we allocate our capital. And this means inbound as a cost. And if you don't use your channel or compensate us for the effort in any other way, shape, or form, we are going to close it. And that's what everybody is doing these days. There is no more channel you can keep around forever with a bunch of inbound and wait for it to be used. To get this inbound reliably without having to beg for mercy from someone, there's effectively 2 ways. Either you pay rent, this is the counter side of the LSP thing, where you aren't selling these channels but buying them. This is a fee you pay, wait for a couple blocks, and you have your inbound liquidity now. And inbound liquidity with LSPs is a one-time fee you pay for setup. But as we just said, inbound you have is a cost factor of the capital locked and committed to you. This is going to be an ongoing lease for the lifetime of the channel, where you have to make it worth it for them to keep this channel you paid for open. You can't just pay a one-time fee and have this set up. This is going to be a recurring expense to you when you want to have inbound from someone else, which comes either through usage of the channel and fees they collect from routing, or by paying them out of band via their checkout page. Doesn't matter how exactly, but they will be compensated for the channel they have to you, or they will close. The other way to get inbound is to do atomic swaps through either us, Lightning Loop, Atomic. There's a bunch of providers for this. What you effectively do is you open this channel, have a bunch of outbound, and do an atomic swap to a UTXO, to the main chain back. It's a one-time action, it's a one-time fee you pay, and it's very capital efficient. Issue being is that now you have inbound with some node you sent the Lightning payment out through. Will they keep your inbound around? How do you compensate them for keeping this inbound with you? So once you do this setup and pay for a fee for a swap, have inbound with someone you pick now, and what's guaranteeing you that this is going to stay open? There's a fee involved every time, not only for setup, but also for keeping the channel and the inbound around for when you actually do need it. The biggest cost factor for us in our thinking is not inbound liquidity or all these other things. The biggest cost for us for running a Lightning node is the risk. And this risk does not show up in a spreadsheet. There is no easy market number you can quote and put it in the formula and you're done. The risk and operational effort is the biggest factor for us when we talk about Lightning and how we run it. The operational risk is pretty immense. This manifests itself in a way that there is a single incident with your node. Nasty force close. Some stuck HDLCs that lock your liquidity in a specific place, and you have to wait for potentially days or weeks to get it back. These things lock your capital, even cost you direct Satoshis, and are a huge operational burden. The bigger issue still is database corruption and what do you do if your disk dies. In Lightning, you have to keep the latest channel state, and if you lose that through bug in the database, implementation, a faulty disk that just doesn't let you read anymore, you have a really, really bad time recovering from that. In the best case scenario, you have static channel backups around and can somehow figure out a way to at least get your Satoshis back. But even in the best case scenario of some kind of data loss, you close all your channels, get via the static channel backups, get all your Satoshis back into your Onchain wallet, and basically all this setup you have done of getting inbound, establishing relationships with others, all this work you've done is basically null and void. And that's the best case scenario. Over the years, countless people have emailed us, asked us to please somehow help them to recover their Umbrel nodes, .9 nodes, where the setup flow is super easy and fun, but once something goes wrong, you're in for a really, really bad time. Recovering Lightning from faulty data is horrible, and that's a huge operational risk. Also, Lightning nodes are a hot wallet. And every Satoshi you have in channels is signed off by a key that's in your hot wallet on a server that's publicly reachable by other people and signs off on updates 24 hours a day. You cannot do cold storage for this. It's the hottest of hot wallets because it's not only on an online device, it actively talks to other people to negotiate what transactions to sign, which is a huge risk, not only from an obvious, it's a hot wallet perspective, there's also lots of complexity in the protocol, which if there's a bug in there, your keys are hot, your funds are there, snap of a finger, it's gone. This hot wallet that needs to be online 24/7 and talk to other hot wallets is really nasty in the sense that you have liveliness assumptions. If your machine is down, that channel partners can force close and abuse all channel states. So you cannot be taking this thing offline for prolonged periods. You have to make sure this thing stays online as much as possible for your own safety. And this is maybe it's sounding easy, but it's actually really hard, because having really good uptime and being around at all the right times is hard, like operationally. Having 3 nines of uptimes is not trivial, especially if you run this thing on bare metal. Plus, if you ever do have an incident, you are at an immense risk of being defrauded. If your machine is compromised where you run the Lightning node on, the money is gone. Nothing you can do. That's just the way it is. It's a hot wallet. And the real issue is that the bigger the Lightning node gets, the hot the wallet becomes, the more useful it is. So it's an inverse correlation of the more risk you take, the better the thing gets, which is not super fun to deal with operationally, because the more money you put in, the more problems you'll have, and the bigger of a honeypot you create yourself. And you operate this thing alone. This is a hot wallet. There's nothing you can delegate to. You can't do multi-sigs with multiple parties. This is one single sig setup, and you have to be around. You have to run this thing. You can't go on vacation, let it be offline for 2 weeks, whatever. In the middle of the night, if the node is down, you have to bring this thing back up to avoid nasty force closures. If there's a power cut, you have, or internet is your internet has an outage, you really have to figure something out to get this thing back, because the network doesn't care if you're on vacation. They will abuse it. And even if they don't abuse it, it still costs you dearly in force closures. And the honest math, when you run the numbers, is pretty tricky. Because the benefits of being an LSP and router, they are very much with the existing operators that are having these huge flows. For example, Block is only able to do 10% APY because they have flows from the Cash App and are therefore very well positioned in the network and get basically inbound for free by paying out Lightning invoices to the customers. The flow in Lightning comes from being a well-positioned node that's reliable and known to be reliable, which you can't easily spin up and you are here now. You have to actually build a reputation of being a good citizen of the Lightning Network to be even like in the discussion of who do I route with or who do I buy a channel from. The market for buying inbound is really small, in a sense that not very many people are buying channels, so the revenue side is really thin. And even if you are competitive at opening channels and being LSP, the biggest revenue drivers that are buying channels are wallets that run their own LSPs because they want to capture the fees and monetize their own services and wallets that they build. This price is set not by you, it's by an open market, and even entering that is super difficult. If you can join the market at all, because as I said, some are even closed ecosystems where the LSP, the liquidity that they sell, is the monetization of the wallet. Yeah, the force close math is pretty nasty, especially during unpredictable fee environments. It undoes the profits of many months of accumulation of routing fees and LSP fees. Not your fault, that's just the way it is, and nothing you can do about it. And how do you price the risk and operational effort? A bad event has a non-zero possibility of your database blowing up or your server burning down. How do you price the risk of that? How do you price your own time of being willing to spend on this Lightning node thing? It's like a lot of work to make this really a good node that people want to use, and your time isn't free. How much are you willing to spend on actually running this thing and not building the business that you actually want to build? It's an infrastructure play where you double down on building your Lightning node, plus the opportunity cost of capital, because Lightning as liquidity network is really capital intensive. Some operators just look at the revenue numbers and say, hey, this is amazing, but they completely discount the operational risk and also the value of their own time that they put into this. yeah, your inbound is someone else's outbound, and they will want to monetize that. There's a certain fee floor, a price floor for capital, and you can't engineer your way out of the cost of capital. There's a limit to that, a floor to that, and we can't work around it. And the margins that exist on Lightning, they compress at scale. If you have a really good opportunity that you spot in the network, which is difficult in itself, this is going to make the rounds, and people will find out about it. They will arbitrage it and drive the margins for really good spots to earn fees in the network to zero. So it's a really rough business where you have to be at the very front in alpha to figure out where to make money in the network. And once you do make actual money in the Lightning Network, people will come, find this opportunity too, and drive the margins to zero, which is a really rough business. So when is it actually worth it to run this Lightning node setup yourself? If you have the flow, as in the number of routed payments, or you send and receive enough yourself to justify the effort. If you're big enough on this sending and receiving that the cost of paying a service is high enough to justify putting in the work yourself, that you have enough of a bill at the end of the month for fees, that you say, hey, it's cheaper when we do this in-house. If you're big enough to absorb the variance of one big force close doesn't kill my entire business, I can afford to lose $1,000 on on-chain fees and I can still continue. Or if you simply value the sovereignty of running your own node, being your own master itself. It's a thing you have to think about if you are really willing to put the work in and if this is enough of a reason for you to risk it. If those conditions match for you, then yeah, it makes sense to run a Lightning node, but you have to keep your eyes open about these exact things. Otherwise, you're going to get wrecked pretty bad, and the network will teach you a lesson that your calculations didn't add up, and you'll end up with a bad experience and a huge loss at the end of the day. So you have to be really mindful of what you are doing, why you are doing it, and what the risks involved are. And yeah, that's pretty much everything from my side. I'm open for questions, and thank you for your attention. Sure.
So you were talking about the operational risks, which are pretty clear to me. Are you still considering regulatory risks, or is this code?
I'm not a lawyer, so I can't speak to that. But of course, it's also like another factor to add to the risks. I can't measure them, I can't put a number on this, but it's also consideration, of course. I just left out because I don't want to talk about things I don't know about. It has been a journey, a rocky one, but I would do it again, yes.